That's ridiculous.
She stood at the witness stand, trying to explain why her mom wasn't at the custody hearing. "She's deployed with SEAL Team 5, Sarah said quietly. The judge's mocking laughter echoed through the courtroom, until the doors opened. Welcome to Motivation Unknown People. Before we begin this powerful story of courage, respect, and a daughter's unwavering faith, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today? And if you believe stories like this need to be told, hit that subscribe button and help us honor those who serve in silence. San Diego Family Court, Room 4B. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the institutional beige walls. 16-year-old Sarah Mitchell sat at the defendant's table, her school backpack clutched in her lap like a shield. Her father, David Mitchell, sat across the aisle with his attorney, occasionally shooting her disappointed glances. Judge Harold Webster presided from his elevated bench, reviewing the custody modification paperwork with the bored efficiency of someone who'd seen thousands of broken families. At 58, he'd built his career on no-nonsense rulings and zero tolerance for what he called parental excuses. "This is a straightforward case," Judge Webster announced, not looking up from his files. "Father seeks full custody modification due to mother's continued absence from parental responsibilities. Mother has failed to appear for 3 scheduled hearings." Sarah's court-appointed advocate, Maria Santos, stood up. "Your Honor, we've explained that Lieutenant Commander Mitchell is currently deployed on classified naval operations. We have documentation from the Navy confirming—" "Ms. Santos," the judge interrupted, "I've heard every excuse imaginable. Military deployment is one thing, but this alleged classified mission nonsense is quite another." He finally looked at Sarah, his expression stern. "Young lady, where exactly do you claim your mother is?" Sarah stood up slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's deployed with SEAL Team 5, Your Honor. She can't contact us because it's classified." The courtroom fell silent for a moment. Then Judge Webster began to chuckle. "SEAL Team 5? He leaned back in his chair. "And I suppose she's jumping out of helicopters and fighting terrorists?" "Sir, she—" "Miss Mitchell," the judge's voice turned cold, "lying to this court is a serious offense. There are no women in Navy SEAL teams. It's physically impossible. These units require strength and endurance that, frankly, women simply don't possess." Sarah's face flushed red. "Your Honor, with respect, my mother has been a SEAL for 8 years. She's completed multiple deployments and—" Judge Webster's laughter echoed through the chamber. Several court staff members exchanged uncomfortable glances, but none dared interrupt. "This is exactly the kind of fantasy thinking that concerns me about this household," he declared. "A child whose mother has filled her head with impossible stories about being some kind of super soldier." David Mitchell shifted uncomfortably. Even he knew his ex-wife's service record was legitimate, but he'd been fighting for custody for 2 years and wasn't about to correct the judge. "Your Honor," Maria Santos tried again, "we have official documentation, Ms. Santos. I don't care what paperwork you've manufactured. Navy SEALs are male, period. This girl is either delusional or her mother has been feeding her elaborate lies to cover up her real activities." Sarah's hands trembled as she gripped the table edge. "Judge Webster, my mom earned her trident. She saved lives. She served our country for over a decade." "Enough." The judge banged his gavel. "This court will not tolerate continued fabrication. Miss Mitchell, your mother is clearly an irresponsible parent who has abandoned her duties. Mr. Mitchell, I'm prepared to grant your petition for full custody today." Sarah stood up abruptly, tears in her eyes but her voice stronger now. "Your Honor, you don't understand. My mother didn't abandon me. She's protecting our country right now." Judge Webster's expression hardened. "Sit down, Miss Mitchell. Your mother's fantasies. They're not fantasies." Sarah's voice cracked, but she didn't sit. "I've seen her gear. I've watched her train. I've lived on naval bases my entire life. I know what a SEAL looks like. And my mother is one." The judge leaned forward menacingly. "Are you calling this court ignorant, young lady? I'm saying you're wrong about women in special operations. There have been women in combat roles since 2013. My mother was one of the first to complete the program." Maria Santos placed a gentle hand on Sarah's shoulder, trying to calm her, but the teenager shrugged it off. "Your Honor," Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength, "my mother has jumped from planes at 30,000 feet. She's conducted underwater demolitions. She speaks 4 languages and has completed survival training in conditions you couldn't imagine." Judge Webster's face reddened. "Miss Mitchell, I will hold you in contempt if you continue this charade." "It's not a charade. She has scars from shrapnel wounds. She wakes up from nightmares about missions she can't tell me about. She's missed birthday parties and school plays because she was literally saving American lives overseas." The courtroom was dead silent now. Even David Mitchell looked uncomfortable with the judge's dismissive attitude. "My mother didn't choose to miss this hearing," Sarah said, her voice echoing in the quiet chamber. "She's somewhere dangerous right now, doing a job that most people, including you, could never handle." Judge Webster stood up, his authority clearly challenged. "That's enough. I will not have a child lecture me about military capabilities. Security, escort Miss Mitchell to—" The heavy courtroom doors suddenly swung open. The first person through the door moved with a fluid precision that made everyone in the courtroom instinctively straighten up. Lieutenant Commander Jessica Mitchell, 42, entered wearing her Navy service dress blue uniform, ribbons and insignia creating a constellation of achievement across her chest. She wasn't alone. Behind her came 6 men in identical dress uniforms, each bearing the distinctive SEAL trident on their chests. They moved in formation, silent and disciplined, taking positions along the back wall of the courtroom. Judge Webster's mouth fell open. The court reporter stopped typing. Even the bailiff took an unconscious step backward. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell approached the barrier, separating the gallery from the court floor. Her bearing was unmistakably military, shoulders back, chin up, eyes forward. The silence in the room was absolute. "Your Honor," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed under life-or-death circumstances. "Lieutenant Commander Jessica Mitchell, United States Navy, requesting permission to address the court." Sarah's face lit up. "Mom!" Judge Webster stared, his earlier confidence evaporating like morning fog. The woman standing before him was clearly military, clearly professional, and clearly not someone to be dismissed lightly. Lieutenant Commander, this is highly irregular," he stammered. "Sir, I understand this hearing concerns the custody of my daughter, Petty Officer Sarah Mitchell." Jessica's eyes found her daughter's face, and for just a moment, her professional mask softened. "I apologize for my delayed arrival. My unit was extracted from our operational area approximately 6 hours ago." One of the SEALs behind her, a Master Chief with graying hair and a face that had seen considerable combat, stepped forward slightly. "Your Honor, Master Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, SEAL Team 5. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell has been under my command for the past 4 months on a classified operation in support of national security. Her absence was not voluntary." Judge Webster looked from Jessica to the assembled SEALs, his face pale. There seems to have been some confusion about your military status, Commander." No confusion, sir, Jessica replied calmly. I've been a Navy SEAL for 8 years, 3 months, and 12 days. I completed Bud S training in Class 301, graduated second in my class, and have since completed 7 overseas deployments. Maria Santos found her voice first. Your Honor, as we attempted to explain earlier, Commander Mitchell's service record is extensively documented. We have official orders confirming her deployment status. Judge Webster's hands trembled slightly as he shuffled through his papers. I was informed that women weren't, that the SEALs didn't. Sir, Jessica interrupted with military courtesy, women have been eligible for all combat roles since 2013. I was among the first class of female candidates to complete SEAL training after the policy. Change. Master Chief Rodriguez stepped forward again. Your Honor, if I may, Lieutenant Commander Mitchell is one of the finest operators I've served with in 24 years. Her performance under combat conditions has been exemplary. Another SEAL, younger but bearing the confident bearing of an experienced warrior, added, Sir, Commander Mitchell led our dive team on 3 separate recovery operations during this deployment. Her leadership directly resulted in the successful completion of our mission. Sarah looked up at her mother with pure pride. Jessica caught her daughter's eye and gave her the slightest nod, a signal between them that everything would be okay. Judge Webster cleared his throat, clearly struggling to regain control of his courtroom. Commander Mitchell, while I appreciate your service, this doesn't change the fact that your military obligations have kept you from your parental responsibilities. Your Honor, Jessica replied, her voice steady, but with an edge that suggested she was not someone to trifle with. My daughter understands the nature of my service. She's lived on military bases her entire life. She knows that serving your country sometimes requires sacrifice from the entire family. That sacrifice, she continued, is what allows this court to operate freely, what allows you to make decisions without fear of foreign threats, what allows my daughter to attend school safely every day. Sarah stood up again, this time with confidence. Your Honor, my mother didn't abandon me. She's been protecting all of us. That's what SEALs do. The 6 SEALs along the back wall hadn't moved, but their presence filled the courtroom with an undeniable authority. These were men who'd seen combat, who'd faced death, who'd devoted their lives to protecting others. Judge Webster looked around the room, suddenly aware that his earlier mockery had been not just wrong, but insulting to people who'd literally risked their lives for their country. I think, he said slowly, there may have been some miscommunication about the nature of Commander Mitchell's absence. Your Honor, Master Chief Rodriguez said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of a career warrior, I'd like to address something that was said earlier about women in combat roles. Judge Webster nodded nervously. Sir, I've served with Commander Mitchell in some of the most dangerous operations this country conducts. I've watched her carry wounded teammates to safety under enemy fire. I've seen her complete missions that would break most men. He gestured to the other SEALs. Every man in this room would trust Lieutenant Commander Mitchell with their lives. In fact, 3 of us have. The SEAL to his left, bearing multiple combat ribbons, stepped forward. Your Honor, Petty Officer First Class Thompson. Commander Mitchell pulled me from a collapsed building in Syria, carried me 2 miles to the extraction point with a dislocated shoulder. Another SEAL nodded. Sir, she's completed underwater demolitions in conditions that would terrify most people. Temperature near freezing, 0 visibility, hostile forces overhead. Jessica maintained her military bearing, but Sarah could see the emotion in her mother's eyes as her teammates vouched for her. The point, Your Honor, Master Chief Rodriguez continued, is that military service, especially at our level, requires sacrifice from entire families. Sarah Mitchell understands this. She's proud of her mother's service, as she should be. Judge Webster looked at Sarah, who stood straighter now, her earlier fear replaced by quiet dignity. "Your Honor," Sarah said, "I've never doubted what my mother does. I've seen the medals she's earned but doesn't display. I've heard the phone calls from families of people she's saved. I know the difference between abandonment and service." David Mitchell, who had remained silent throughout the dramatic turn of events, finally spoke. "Your Honor, I think I may have misrepresented the situation. My ex-wife's military obligations are legitimate." Jessica turned to look at him for the first time, her expression unreadable. "The truth is," David continued, clearly uncomfortable, "I was angry about the divorce, about the deployments, about feeling like I came second to the Navy. But Sarah's right. Jessica didn't abandon our family. She served our country." Judge Webster set down his papers, his earlier arrogance completely deflated. "Commander Mitchell, I owe you an apology. My comments about women in combat roles were inappropriate and uninformed. Sir, no apology necessary. But I would ask that you consider the full picture when making decisions about my daughter's welfare." "Of course." The judge looked at Sarah, then at the assembled SEALs. "Miss Mitchell, I also owe you an apology. Your loyalty to your mother and your understanding of her service. That speaks well of both of you." Sarah nodded, tears in her eyes but her head held high. "This custody modification petition is denied," Judge Webster announced. "Commander Mitchell, when your service obligations permit, please coordinate with the court for any future scheduling needs." "Thank you, Your Honor." As the court session ended, the SEALs filed out in the same disciplined formation they'd entered with. But before leaving, each one stopped to acknowledge Sarah with a respectful nod. Master Chief Rodriguez was the last to leave. He paused at the barrier and looked at Sarah directly. "Your mother's proud of you, kid. You stood up for what was right, even when it was hard. That's what we do, too." After the courtroom cleared, Jessica and Sarah stood together in the hallway. For the first time since entering, Jessica broke her military composure and pulled her daughter into a fierce hug. "I'm sorry I missed the hearing," Jessica whispered. "You didn't miss it?" "Mom, you were right on time." They walked out of the courthouse together, past the 6 SEALs waiting respectfully in the parking lot, past reporters who had somehow caught wind of the story, past curious onlookers who stared at the woman in uniform and the teenager walking beside her with obvious pride. In Judge Webster's chamber, the man sat alone, staring at the legal documents that had seemed so straightforward an hour earlier. On his desk lay a note his clerk had handed him, a brief summary of Lieutenant Commander Mitchell's service record. 3 Bronze Stars, 2 Purple Hearts, Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal with Combat V, and a list of classified operations that would remain sealed for decades. He'd mocked a hero's daughter for telling the truth about her mother's service. The shame of that realization would follow him for the rest of his career. Outside, Jessica and Sarah climbed into Jessica's truck. As they drove away from the courthouse, Sarah looked at her mother with new appreciation. "Mom, why didn't you ever tell me about the medals? About what you've done?" Jessica was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. "Because that's not why I do it, sweetheart. I don't serve for recognition or glory. I serve because someone has to. Because protecting people like you, protecting families, protecting freedom, that's what gives my life meaning. Even when it means missing court hearings and birthday parties, even then. But Sarah, I need you to know something. You are my greatest mission. Everything I do, every risk I take, it's all to make sure you grow up in a world where you can be anything you want to be. As they drove toward home, both mother and daughter understood something new about sacrifice, about service, and about the strength that runs in families who answer the call to protect others. And in courtrooms across the country, word began to spread about the day a judge learned not to underestimate the truth, especially when it's defended by a 16-year-old girl and backed up by the deadliest warriors alive. Welcome to Motivation Unknown People. These are the stories of courage that hides in plain sight, of families who sacrifice for all of us, and of young people who refuse to let heroes be forgotten. Have you ever stood up for someone when others doubted them? Share your story in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. If stories like this remind you that real heroes often serve in silence, subscribe to Motivation Unknown People for more stories of hidden courage and unexpected strength. Until next time, remember, some battles are fought in courtrooms, some in distant lands, but all of them matter. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply tell the truth.